Rod Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights in Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. God, isn't that a beautiful ride there at the end? That's PCH, going down PCH. Malibu's a whole different situation right now, but maybe I'll be getting back to California sometime soon. I look forward to that. So another great day today. We got a couple of episodes. I had to move one guy off to Thursday because we're just overpacked. Got a couple strategy meetings this morning. The show's coming along. I'm about ready to wrap up another automation. We'll talk about that in the classes, the school, SKOOL classes. That's really coming along. It's exciting. I've gotten several comments and questions regarding some of the last shows, and there are 3 shows in AI this week. I think we have 7 this week, something like that. And we had Labor Day, Memorial Day. Hey, happy Memorial Day. I hope everybody got with their family and got to do the things that my dad was in the Marine Corps. So it's a deal. And, yesterday was, remember I told you I got in a motorcycle accident. Every Memorial Day I would drive out, towards the west and end up somewhere. Just that drive with my dad in my heart, And so 3 years ago, I broke every bone on this side of the body, as you all know. That was yesterday, 3-year anniversary. What an anniversary. So I told you we got a lot of stuff going on. We'll probably have a few people jumping on here in a little bit. It looks like somebody's already waiting for us. I bet you that's from Nalda. She pops in right out of the gate all the time. But anyway, we'll find out. Today, Paul Thornton. This is the kind of thing, I really like. The subject matter of his journey and what he's here to do is what originally this program, this broadcast, this platform, we started with self-improvement. Now this is the next level up in that teaching leaders to become leaders or better leaders or family members, having us so in the great middle class, we all got to come together. But while we're doing that, we all got to get better. We all got to constantly improve ourselves. We're not placed on this earth to just molt, just to hang. We're placed on this earth to bring the best out of each person, starting with ourselves, the best that this society has to be able to build and better to the next. So I'm going to quit chit-chatting and yapping here. I'm going to bring my new best friend, Mr. Paul Thornton, aboard. Yeah, say great friend. I can't even say his name. Paul, how you do?
I'm doing well, Rod. Thank you for having me on your podcast, and I look forward to chatting with you.
You and me both, brother. So you have, as you heard a little bit out of the gate there,
Yep.
And obviously you know a lot more than I do. That's why you're the expert, and I'm the guy that, as long as I understand it, because you're the expert, you're going to use terms, right? As long as I can understand, I guarantee everybody out there is going to. We have one person keep getting on and getting off and getting on. One person's hanging, the other one's skipping back and forth. I'm going to have to talk to them. Don't be leaving on us here. Paul, I told you, we talked in the green room earlier, and you obviously, the journey, the story, the reason you're here is because of what you're doing with leadership, with management within companies and within families, and all that structure. So, as you know, I like to go a little further back. What brought you to get into the field that you're now teaching other people to become better at? How did that go? What's that look like?
Great question.
Thank you.
I played hockey in high school, and my team was always kind of in the middle of the league. but there were two teams that were always like 1 or 2. And
Yeah.
it got me wondering, why is that? Why are they always so good? Why is my team average? And, why aren't we 1 or 2? And it got me thinking, well, it's not the players, because our players were as good as their players. So I concluded it had something to do with the coach. And my question to myself was, what do those coaches do differently than the average coach? And that kind of got me going on the idea
Good
that
question.
the best coaches, leaders, teachers, parents find a way to bring out the best in their athlete or child or whatever. So that kind of got me thinking about it. Then I went off to college and I had a great course with a Dr. Paul Hersey. Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard, they developed the situational leadership model, which was very popular. It described 4 different styles of leading. And it was just a great class. And bottom line is, he further stimulated my interest in leadership. So that kind of got me going. And then, from there, it was kind of like, I kind of thought, if we always knew what to do and how to do it and had confidence and courage and what have you, we wouldn't need a leader. We could figure it out ourselves.
Right.
So I came to think about the importance of the leader and what the leader does to add value and how the leader brings out the best in people and helps teams and individuals and families, whatever, go to the next level. So that kind of got me interested. Then from there, I coached a college hockey team, actually, and I got to start applying some of my...
coached?
Yeah.
You coach? Okay, so that was kind of the first step, right?
That was my first time to apply the leadership principles.
It was all building in there, and now you got that first opportunity.
Right.
Cool. That's a great sport.
And I learned very quickly that theory is one thing and applying it is something else. And I learned that it's a lot more challenging than I first thought. And I concluded that, every person, every situation is unique. And the way I communicate and connect and motivate one player is different than the way I do it with another player. So that was
how do you figure that out? How do you pull that in pretty quickly? Because I know where you're going. People take things differently because they're different. So how do you figure that out? Because that's the key right there, what you just said, right?
I think trial and error. You try something and it doesn't work. And then if you do the reflection and think about why didn't it work? What could I have done differently? It worked with Pete, but it's not working with Sam, so what did I miss? What do I need to do differently to motivate Sam and to connect with him and bring out the best in him, that type of thing. So I think trial and error is a big part of it, but I think every leader needs to spend time in reflection and, they need to be open to feedback. They need to consider what they did. Did it work? Did it not work? What could they do differently? Constantly learning and growing and trying new approaches, basically.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my first activity or opportunity to practice my leadership, if you will. And, some things went good and some things not so good. And, I learned, and in that process too, they all say the first thing we need to do is lead ourselves. So you got to get clear on your core beliefs and values. And again, that requires reflection and trying things and seeing what works and doesn't work, and fine tuning your beliefs and values. So now you got a firm foundation of what I believe and what I value. And then from there, you can build into other things about, leadership styles and leadership process and things like that. And then I started teaching. Actually, I taught for 4 years while I was coaching. And again, in the classroom, same thing, principles and
hey, can can you back up a little bit for about 30, 40 seconds? You froze. I didn't hear anything you said.
Huh.
By the way, just side note, remember we were talking about that square down there?
Yeah.
I forgot about this, but sometimes I put the comments up on the screen here, and that's like a background. And so you'll see,
Okay.
you'll see that. So anyway, I'm going to take it off, but I don't know why that was important for me to say, but I thought I'd say it. Go ahead and step back a little bit, and then go back where you were, because I was live, but I couldn't see. I mean, you actually started a screen roll. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you know where we lost our track, or more or less? No.
No, just go back a little bit and just kind of rebuild on what you were saying there. Some great stuff I wanted to comment about too, and we'll get to that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so my first experience being a leader was coaching a college hockey team.
I got all that up to the point where you were trialing and error, and I'm glad you said that, because there was something I was going to bring up. I like to be authentic.
Yeah.
When you're authentic, that's where you're able to take suggestions, criticisms, impact. But the other side of that is you got to really know, you got to really get to know them.
Yeah.
It's not just bossy, it's get to know what they're all about. So right from there, go from there, that kind of thing. Okay.
So as a leader, you try things, you see what works, what doesn't work. You need to reflect on what happened. What could you do differently? How could you connect better, motivate the person better? How could you help them better? And Rod, you mentioned the idea of being authentic, and I totally agree with that. You need to be authentic with who you are, first of all, and that gets back to, am I clear on my beliefs and values? Am I really firm? Am I certain? Do I really know what I stand for? And then I have to get to know my players, and each player is unique and different. So getting to know them, what their goals are, what motivates them, how best to interact with them, how to give them feedback, all those things are important for a leader to get some understanding on. And one thing I learned that one approach I used on occasion, I would simply ask the player, what motivates you? When do you perform at your best? What can I do as a leader or a coach to help you be your best performer on the ice? What can I do? And it's a simple technique, but sometimes they would be very, clear and succinct in telling me what they like and what they need from the coach and what the coach can do to help them, and, that type of thing. So that was kind of a easy way to find out some of the things I can do to motivate my players. And as I said, each player had different things they would tell me. So from there, I then went into the corporate world, and I was involved in human resources, and a lot of it had to do with training and development. I did a lot of leadership training. We had a big program. We were trying to transition our managers to be more leaders, and that took like a 3-year program. It was a big company, and there were like 300 middle managers that we were dealing with. So it was a big.
What did that look like? What did that look like when you're taking you're using the specific words, obviously, that are defining what you're talking about, managers and leaders.
Yeah.
What does that kind of look? I mean, assume classrooms, 300 people in and out over the week kind of thing, 20 at a time or something?
Yeah, it was more like 20, 25 at a time going through. It was a 2-day leadership program. Nice. And the way we kind of looked at it was managers use current methods, procedures, processes to get the work done. Leaders want to change something. The process, the people, the mission, change is what they're about. They have a different vision, a different view of where they're trying to get to. So we wanted to have our managers not forget management, because that's important. You still need to do all those things. The status quo, managers focus on the status quo, and that's not bad. But, the world was beginning to change faster and faster. So they had to take on this role of, okay, what do we need to change to be competitive? And what do we need to do differently going forward? How do I get my group to buy into it? Those types of things. So I did that for a number of years and moved around in human resources and really did all the different roles, succession planning and reorganizations and leading organizational change efforts and stuff like that. And then I went back into college teaching at a community college for the next 20 years. And there I did a lot of teaching of leadership. I taught a course, Principles of Leadership, and Principles of Management also. So again, a lot of teaching and that's where I really learned a lot, had a lot of guest speakers, and I brought in people from all sorts of professions to give their view on what, how they see a leader, like a priest, a comedian, coaches, and each person had a slightly different view of what leadership meant to them and how they implemented it in their area of responsibility. So yeah, that's kind of what my tale is.
That's kind of like what we do here too. I mean, obviously you're in a next level structure, and we're bringing in different people that have the same mission, but take different angles. And what it does is it fills in color between the layers for people when they learn. That's huge right there.
Yep.
And I can see where all this building into you is where you're taking it now, because in teaching, you've got a classroom of people that you're engaging, just like the people in management that you need to keep engaged.
Yep.
Very awesome.
Yep.
Very awesome.
Yeah, I recently interviewed an artist, and I wanted to get the artist's view of leadership. And we discussed, like, how do you envision the painting that you're going to produce? And what is your approach to starting the painting? Do you start in the middle of the picture, or do you start at the edges? Little things like that. But again, to your point, when you talk to different people in different professions, photographers and artists and coaches and teachers and firemen and what have you, you get a different slant on how they view it. And each one has helped me get a little more insight and understanding of what this whole thing of leadership entails. Big picture. Yeah.
That is awesome. I bet you talking to that artist was a lot of fun. Artists are
very interesting.
Really very interesting aspect. I kind of know both sides, into that business mind, more I don't know if these are the right word, but concise, the performance, the path is what's more important to an artist, because they're putting all that into it. So do businesses, but it's a little more structured. I love that you're doing both.
Well, one thing she said, which I found really interesting, was after the painting is done, she said she might take 2 to 3 weeks to decide on what type of frame to put around the picture. Now, we talk a lot about leaders framing the issue. What frame do you put around the problem or opportunity that you're dealing with? And I was thinking about, wow, that's incredible that you would put that much thought into the precise frame that would highlight the picture as you view it in your mind. So again, it was kind of like, wow, I hadn't really thought about that. I just thought, yeah. So it was interesting.
Yeah. Again, there's more layers. You're bringing a level. If you're doing the work that anybody in your position should be doing, because it's not a straight line what you do.
Yeah.
You know, that teaching is, like you said, there's different people. If you're going at, what'd you say, firemen?
Yeah,
I
firemen.
mean,
Well, one time
every
I'll
one
tell
of
you,
those are different. Go ahead.
yeah, one time I had a comedian come into my class.
You said that. Yeah, I bet you that was fun.
I wanted to explore how a comedian connects with the audience and how a comedian presents their message in, in a humorous way, but how do they develop it? How do they communicate it? Who do they focus on in the audience? Those types of things. But I guess the big point is, how do you, as a comedian, go about connecting with the group that you're talking with or trying to make laugh? And it was interesting, I mean, again, little tidbits of like, he does this and that, and I forget exactly what he said, but I know the students were very engaged. Of course, in his presentation, he had some humorous comments as well, which made it, uplifting and
even better.
Yeah, even better. Yeah. So
that's I've thought about that actually, because this is going a little off subject, and I know Ronaldo's going to give me a smack for that because she says stay on the subject, and so I'm going to pop off here a little bit, and it's interesting that you bring up comedians because before it was much more of a skit, right? An already memorized, organized thing.
Yeah.
And then they build off of that same thing, connecting with the audience, building off of it. Today, it's even more intense because the RAF and some of these guys that are out there do more like, okay, and start picking on people in the audience and build their entire skit off of that. And so that's the bringing up about a comedian's brilliant, because that is the ultimate right now on stage, 50 people around me. I got to make you laugh because you paid money to be here. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
That is a great point. I love that, man.
Yeah. I think you're right. It is.
So what are some of the other things that have brought you into the next level? So I think we've kind of got a full idea, full picture of how you're bringing or what you're bringing to the party.
Yeah.
So how does that all go now? You do, you're in Boston, right?
I'm in Boston. Yeah.
Love the accent. Love what
I teach, I teach a couple things, but one I'll tell you very simply. I teach that there are 3 basic leadership styles. Directing, you tell the person what to do, how to do it, when to have it done by. Discussing, you ask questions about the goal, the plan, the obstacles, things like that. And delegating, you empower the person to do what they need to do to take ownership of the task and get it done. Each style is appropriate in certain situations. Teachers, coaches, parents use these styles all the time. There are times when a teacher needs to tell, that's my phone. The teacher,
I was going to say, I don't have a phone in here. That sounded really close.
The teacher needs to tell the student, what to do, how to do it, that type of thing. Other times when the teacher is asking questions to engage the students, other times they're delegating a project or a team project, you got to do X, Y, Z. Each style is appropriate in certain situations. If a person has no experience and they have no idea what to do or how to do it, they need and want direction, right? They want to be told the steps, the actions they need to take. If they have some familiarity with the task or issue or problem, they want to contribute, they want to share their ideas. So you engage them. If they have
Is this a level thing? Is this a level thing, or is it different people?
It could be people or teams, but it's based on their experience and skill set. And then, some people that have done the task 28 times, they don't need you, the leader, telling them how to do it. You empower them, do this, have it done by this date. I was teaching my 12-year-old grandson how to dock my boat at the gas pier. So he had never done it before. He was clueless, had no idea what to do. So I went over, this is what you got to do, and this is the speed you got to go in at, and this is the angle you got to take, and put the boat in neutral here, and then go a little bit more and put it in neutral, through all those steps. And he tried it and didn't go so well the first time. But after like 2 or 3 tries, he was starting to get it. And then we went out the next day and tried it some more. So we practiced, and I gave him immediate feedback on what he was doing right and wrong, and try this and that. And then I started getting into discussion. I'd say to him, how do you think you did on that dock? What do you think you did well? What could you do differently? Seeing how he was thinking about his own performance. And then after doing that for another number of days, he was getting it. He learned how to do it. So 2 weeks later, I gave him the keys to the boat and said, go over and gas up the boat and come back and take me for a ride,
Oh, best day of his life, I bet.
He loved it. Yeah. He felt,
oh my God, yeah.
For a 12-year-old kid, it's a 17-foot boat, which isn't big, but it's not small either. But he was, he felt empowered anyway.
Oh,
but
hell yeah.
Same idea with teaching your kids how to drive a car. We give them a lot of instruction and do's and don'ts, and these are the steps you got to take. And then we should have some discussion with them about, how do you think you did today? What do you think you did well? What do you think is the most important thing when you're driving? And then, of course, after a while, they're capable and talented, and we're empowering, and they're driving themselves, So again, each style is appropriate. Now, the problem is some leaders micromanage. They never get out of the directing style. They want to keep telling the child or student or employee what to do, how to do it, even though they know, and that turns off the employee, demotivates them. With discussion, we've all been in those meetings where the discussion goes on and on and on and on. At some point you got to make a decision, and then with delegation, I find some leaders over delegate to their star performers. That employee who is going to hit a home run, they're going to do a great job. They keep giving them more and more work to do, and they under-delegate to some of the other employees. So some get overloaded, some really don't have all that much that they're doing, and they don't really learn and grow. So 3 styles, very simple, very easy to apply. So that's one of the major things I taught my students, and when I did seminars and workshops, I would teach. And there's more to it, of course, but you get the idea.
Yeah, and some incremental. By the way, I got a text from people are trying to get on. Remember when that thing went out, wiped everybody out, and people are trying to. I don't know what it is, but sorry, we don't have the typical abundance of questions going here, but I do want to keep up with them a little bit. One thing with what you were talking about there. Oh, Bradley, you're making up, dude. Pop him out. I always tell. He shows up every once in a while. I say I'm going to shout out to you if you come on. So he's coming on. It's a nice little trade off here. He asks smart questions, but on the incremental part, there's some broad brush we were just talking about in different ways and different things. And it made me think of a conversation I was having, I think it was a few weeks ago now, but we were talking, and there's an example of what you're talking about there. When you micromanage or macro manage, you want to macro, right? So as a leader, as a bit, say, especially small business owners, you want to if you hire people to do a job and they're coming to you getting, okayed or not okayed on the job, you're not managing that person as well as you should. You're certainly not getting a return on your money for the company that you're responsible for. But here was the point. What I thought was interesting. So you've got to draw a point, you described this in your last point discussion a second ago, and it's leaders, managers have to let go of that stuff. In other words, somebody comes in and says, hey, you wanted me to do this, this, and this. How do you want me to do that? You stop right there. And you either have a learning point or a growth point. And that point comes and you look at the person and say, well, if I wasn't here, I mean, let's say I'm out for the week. What would you do in that instance? Mm-hmm. Sit in the uncomfortable silence that other person's going to sit in for a minute and go, holy shit. So sit there, and either they say exactly, oh, that's perfect. You don't need me. Go do your thing, man. Awesome. Great job. Or do this also or that also, a little learning. And boom, that's that management stuff you're talking about, right?
Yes.
That leader stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's hook up with Antoni here. How can teachers apply corporate leadership techniques in the classroom? Good question. Kind of, you were talking about that when you were teaching a little bit. That's a good. How does that relate to each other? Because the world acts differently than the classroom, but you're still teaching the subject. What does that look like?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know if I differentiate between corporate leadership strategies and just leadership strategies or techniques.
Good point. Okay, yeah.
I think a leader needs to be, a teacher rather, needs to be a leader in the classroom, in that they are focused on figuring out what they can do to help the students, what they can do to add value to help them develop the skills, the confidence, the know-how to succeed. Now, I talked a minute ago about the 3 styles, and I think teachers need to use those 3 styles in the classroom. There are times when you need to direct the students on the steps and the process that they need to take to delegate or to give feedback or to make presentations or whatever it might be. And there's other times when they're going to do things, and then you're going to ask questions to get their assessment of how they think they did, what went well, what didn't, So they're learning through your questions. And then, as I said, there's times
experience, and then you build it in with the quiet, because they got to think about it, right?
Right.
More times you use something, your eyes, your mouth, your hands, your ears.
Yep.
The better you learn. Yeah. Nice.
And
I like it.
One of the things I did, like teaching presentations, I would videotape the students, and then we'd play the videotape, or they got to take their videotape home and look at it and analyze it and identify 1 or 2 things they did really well and maybe 1 thing they could improve on. And again, that was kind of delegating, but having them do the assignment of those 2 things, and then coming back and talking about it with me one-on-one or in the class as a whole. And then the third thing, the delegating style, if you have a team project, let's say, you're delegating to that team, here's the problem or case study or whatever it might be. You as a team need to figure it out. You need to, you tell them what you want, the end product, you want a paper or you want a presentation or whatever, but they need to work as a team and come up with the appropriate solution to the, challenge, whatever it might be. So I think teachers, again, need to use all 3 styles in the classroom. I used to use all 3 every day. And, I think they need to do that. And leaders are always challenging people to go to the next level, so you're always raising the bar a little bit and challenging them to, do a better performance or pick up on this little thing they did, giving feedback or whatever it might be. So
that's, and unfortunately, the only time you really see that from managers is maybe as a review for pay. This is what you did right. This is what we think you need to improve on. And it's typically just copied and pasted. I mean, I've been in that corporate world where that kind of happens. Bradley here threw a couple out, and we got a few more going on here as well. What's the best way to lead when you're, and this is interesting because everything what you're talking about, you could add a little layer. Some people are more attracted or capable or comfortable in the leadership role, even when they're not, but there's a balance there. You can't be a jerk, but how do you lead when you're not in a formal position? That's a great question. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I think, there are thought leaders, and thought leaders are presenting an idea or concept that challenges the status quo. So anytime you can offer an idea and convince the group to fully consider it, you're taking a leadership role, because you're getting them to think differently.
Makes sense.
And to see the bigger picture. And if you're also persuasive and convincing, you can get them to say, yeah, that makes sense. And maybe we should change the goal, or maybe we should do this or that, So being a thought leader doesn't require any title. It just requires you have very good ideas that you're going to present to your team or group or department.
You're not going to get away with presenting bad ideas.
No. And people do present bad ideas, and they can't convince the group that it would work or would, add value or make a difference. So the idea doesn't cut it and doesn't make it.
And then they either adjust or go other directions here.
Right.
Remember, I told you earlier that we had an issue, and remember, my audience kind of picks on me sometime, but I know exactly what today, after much effort, you see it keeps going up to 10 or 12. I mean, that's really low, but then it drops down.
Yeah.
I think they said there's something going on with YouTube. There's some sort of thing going on, but sorry, Brad, I'm sorry. We were all doing our job here. That wasn't us. Come on, Brad. Don't be throwing stones here, brother. Well, you can throw stones. You're the audience. You can do whatever the heck you want, man, except rush the stage. So, how do you help others discover their own leadership style? Great question. Okay, I forgive you, Brad.
Well, I think the important thing is that you help people spend the time and coach them on getting clear on what they believe and value. I think it starts there. And that's not an easy thing to do. Getting crystal clear on what you believe and value takes a lot of time, a lot of...
You mean yourself, right?
Yeah, you yourself. So
absolutely. You got to be honest with yourself too. That's not always easy.
Being honest, being straightforward, and then testing out your ideas. I may say, I believe in, continuous improvement. Well, okay, how do I implement that in my day-to-day work? And do I really do it in all aspects of my work and my life? Or do I pick and choose, and then thinking more about, do I value, is that one of my values just in certain situations, or is it really something I really believe,
Is it here or is it
integrity
around?
And courage and confidence, all those things. So that's the first thing I think you can do to help a person is get clear on their values and beliefs. And then I think the next big thing is helping them understand how they can influence and inspire others. Is it with their example? Is it with their ideas? We talked about thought leadership. Is it with the questions they ask? Is it something else? But what's their approach? What are they comfortable doing? What works for them? What doesn't work for them? Exploring that. And that gets them on the road to thinking about, okay, how do I influence someone? It's not that easy to do,
That brings up, and David brings up a good point, kind of going back a little bit here with him, where we were talking about, is it, I think you stole my question, David. Yeah. Well, at least it's a great question in my opinion. Thank you, David. I'm just messing with you. Do you think leadership can be taught? And this is not just this isn't an easy answer. It's got some idiosyncrasies because we're talking about it. Or is it natural? It's kind of both, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, your personality,
true,
your wisdom, your intuition, those things you can say you're born with them, and your communication skills at some point. But certainly there's a number of things you can develop as well, right, as a leader. How to think big picture, how to communicate in a very clear, decisive way, how to give feedback that's helpful to the person. So there's a lot of things you can learn about being an effective leader. But I agree with you, Dave. Well, David didn't say that, but I agree that there's some things that are probably a little on the natural side. You're born with it. It's a part of your personality. Some people connect better with people than others. Some people just naturally they're good at it. So combo of both, but I think certainly it can be trained and developed, and it's a skill or a technique you need to keep working at. It's,
like a muscle, right? You got to keep working at it, build it up.
Yep.
But you're right. I mean, anybody can learn to become a leader, technically, right? And what you're pointing at there is it's to have both the skill set, not only the what's inside of you, what's your, like you said, personality. That only then just drives the education that you're learning how to perfect those skills. And that's well, you have professional sports, and then people get out of high school, get out of college, that next level. When you're bringing all that together, you're at that next level. You become a great leader if you do what you should, right?
Yeah, I think also you can become a leader, but there's a lot of people that don't want the negative baggage that comes with being a leader,
And there's a lot of it.
Giving someone candid negative feedback, saying no to people, making the tough decisions that we're going to not do strategy A, we're going to do strategy B. I mean,
being alone on the hill.
Turn off a lot of, you're not liked by everyone, I mean,
right.
It's it's challenging,
It is. Yeah. It's real challenging when you walk in the lunchroom and everybody. No, not that bad, but so Ronaldo, I mentioned her earlier. She is asking about, and I'm not sure this. Let me read this again. I think I'm missing something. What do you think about co-teaching as a learning tool?
I love it. I think it's, I did it a number of times in my classes.
What is can you define that? Obviously, you know it, and Ronaldo knows it, but I told you got to get past me. Yeah. I got to understand what co-teaching means.
Well, co-teaching, myself and another professor would be teaching the class, and we would each,
great question, Ronaldo.
Build off of each other, so to speak, but we'd each cover certain things and what have you. But co-teaching helped me learn a lot from the other teacher about what their techniques and their approach and that type of thing. So I think it's a great thing to do. And I think it's also a great thing to do to get feedback or give feedback to each other afterwards, because the other teacher's observing you. So, and you're observing them. So after the class,
side by side?
Yeah, both of you, in front
the
of the classroom. When I did, both of us were in front of the classroom. I would be, speaking, lecturing for 10, 15 minutes. And then I say, okay, so-and-so, now, you take it from here, or what are your comments on this? So at the end of the class, getting some feedback about what do you think I did well here, or what could I do differently to be more effective in communicating this lesson or this point, that type of thing. So I think it's great. I think I would highly encourage it. And I think you can learn an awful lot about what you're doing and how effective you're coming across. So keep it up.
Yeah, it makes 100% sense. Is that a thing? I mean, I guess it is a thing, but I mean, I've never heard the term co-teaching, but that's awesome because you're getting more than just double the information. Right now, you're built in two people teaching a class with slightly different angles coming in at it. That's the core. That's boom. That's the meat. That's the best thing you could have, right?
It is, but I think there's a lot of teachers that don't want anyone in their classroom. You have to be confident to want to co-teach, I think. You have to be open. You have to be motivated to learn. So there's a lot that, a lot of characteristics that go into being motivated to, ask someone, would you like to co-teach this course with me and why and what have you? So the college I was at,
earlier too, business and teachers, there's no difference in leadership. That's exactly what you're saying here. The college you were at, sorry, I missed the
college I was at, or the department I was in, I think maybe there were one or two of us that did co-teaching. The other 15 never did it. And I would talk about it at staff meetings as something I recommended and highly encouraged and what have you, but didn't take off.
Yeah, I think there's some effort in that too, right? I mean, you got to be confident, you got to be this, you got to be that. But we talk about and you the high school, the lower education systems need a lot of work. We all know that. The primary upper education levels do too. But it's you're teaching for a reason. You have a passion for something. I mean, teachers don't go in, although some make good money, some don't, but they don't go into that like firemen. They go to that profession for a reason, for what nurses and teachers. That light is not working. I'm still screwing around with this lighting. It sucks today. Bad technical day. So I'm surprised. 2 out of, what'd you say, 15?
15 or something. Yeah.
That's too bad. That's really too bad.
Yeah.
So what are some of the again, I'm going to stay in this co-teaching thing because it's fascinating to me. So you're teaching a leadership class alongside of Mr. or Ms. How do you do, whoever. And you're going back and forth. So you have prepared statements. Does that overlap on purpose as a practice, or do you just like we do, just kind of roll in and out of the conversation and hand it off perfect time, pick in there, or go back and forth with questions? How does that look like?
We did it both ways. Sometimes we were pretty structured. I'd say, I'm going to take 15, 20 minutes to cover this topic, and then you take 15 minutes to cover this topic, and we'd kind of structure it. Other times we would be more fluid and we'd say, let's both of us jump in and build off of each other regarding conflict management, let's say. So one of us would introduce the topic and say a little bit, and then the other one would make some points, and then I would say something. So it would be back and forth, sort of like we were saying with the comedian who's interacting with the person in the audience doesn't know what that person's going to say. And it's, it's like improv. It's, in the moment, and you got to go with what you're given and what have you. So each one is,
sorry guys,
each one is unique and brings a slightly different dynamic exchange or presentation to the class. So, that's kind of what I found.
I would think you'd also not only just learn more yourselves from each other, obviously, like Ronaldo said, great learning experience for everybody concerned. But I also would think, man, I'm sorry, I got something happening here that's I can't get rid of right now.
A lot of pollen in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that and that and that and dust and
Yeah.
hot lights. So you notice I had to get one of the layers off. The studio is quite warm today. But as you get those learning lessons that we're talking about back and forth, it's a great learning experience. But I would also, one level above, I would also say that shifting back and forth between two people helps elevate the focus, helps elevate because teaching's all about learning. The best place to be, or the best practices to know how to get people to learn something is what the primary responsibility is. The subject's there, but how do I get as much of that into your head and hold as possible? That's a technique teachers need. And I would think that going back and forth with two different people, make it like the comedian. You said they were highly involved. No doubt about that. I got to imagine that's a good technique too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think when you're teaching, when you're presenting, you may not be aware of something you're doing, or you're missing a point, or the student may have asked a question and you may not be quite answering it. The other co-teacher is observing, and sometimes they have a clearer understanding of what the question really was getting at. And they then can jump in and say, well, let me just add to what Paul said, blah, blah, blah. So there's that benefit that the person who's not teaching at the moment is observing and studying and getting a sense of maybe where they can add value differently than what you're doing. So
I like that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that's that thing again. You're coming from a different angle, and because the other person's listening and taking it in, not thinking about the next comments as well, not splitting that. That's a good come in to add that thought. Thanks for Hanks. I think he's meant thanks here. How do great leaders manage their own stress under pressure? And that's a big part of leadership, because you can't lose it, right?
Yeah, that's a very important question. And I think stress is something we're all dealing with more and more of these days.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's important. I just wrote a book on this, actually. I think it's important to be clear.
What's the name of it? What's the name of the book?
When your demands exceed your coping skills, you have a stress reaction. So I talk about demands as anything you need to get done, and we all have a laundry list of things we need to get done today.
Oh my God.
Conduct a podcast, buy milk at the grocery store, prepare dinner, whatever it is. We have a list of 50 things we got to do.
Laundry. I got to do laundry today.
Yeah, laundry, whatever. We also need to have coping skills.
Yeah.
And that's the skill set we need to deal with our demands. And that includes, how well do we manage ourselves? How well do we set goals, establish priorities, make decisions? How efficient are we there? But also things like, do we have a exercise routine? Do we work out? Do we meditate? Do
Balance.
we do yoga? What do we do to unwind? And what I find is when demands increase, people stop doing their coping skills and they spend more time on the demands. So now they're not doing any coping. They're not meditating. They're not working out because they want to take that time and do it all in demand. So after a while, all they're doing 24/7 is dealing with their work pressures and tasks they got to get done and projects and on and on and on, and they get stressed out. So my advice would be to don't overlook your coping skills. Meditation, yoga, working out, going for a walk, whatever it does.
What percentage of that? And I don't know if there's a real number or not. I mean, how I work out, I usually like to get an hour, and now it's warm, I can start swimming. So, and then I do some yoga. I mean, but how much of that coping efforts, activities is a balance. Let's say you work 60 hours a week. I don't know, whatever. What do you need to have an hour a day, a couple of minutes, a couple of times a week, or is it just vary completely from every single person?
I think it varies person to person. I think it's good if you have a daily type thing you do.
I hear that a lot.
I meditate twice a day and I work out on the treadmill just about every day, but whatever works for you, but it's important you have a tool or technique you can use to unwind, because the pressures are there, the demands are there, and you need to have some techniques. And also on the coping skills side, a support group. Do you have people you can go to for help and guidance? I'm struggling with this employee at work and blah, blah, blah. What do you think I should do? And, that's important as well. So I don't know if I'd have a number on how much, but it's important you figure it out and have one.
Otherwise, you're going to have a breakdown.
Right. You
keep stuffing things in. Someday you're going to boom, and something's going to happen.
Right.
I know that from experience.
We all have a breaking point.
Hey, are you okay? We're coming up on an hour. We're probably there's a few more questions. I mean, you don't have a hard stop or anything right now, do you?
No.
Okay. Probably got about 5, 6, 7, 8 more minutes.
Sure.
Just want to make sure you were good, because you're the man. Good. Let's go.
I'm good.
Yeah, bring it on. Very interesting conversation, by the way, today. Here's another. I told you the audience here gets a little sassy sometimes. And Clive, he just gave me a little bit of it was a lot of trouble to connect with you today. But I finally did. Thanks, Clive. I appreciate you being here. Let's jump on to here. Everyone can learn Ronalda. Sometimes she just sits in the background. She's throwing it out today. She loves this subject, obviously. She's a very artistic young woman, and she's very talented and very educated. So I'm not surprised she's here for this. Everyone can learn from the more experienced person. Co-teaching was a requirement with the Red Cross. Yeah, here's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Her and I have talked about that. Red Cross fitness class. That makes sense, right?
Yeah. I like that idea. Yeah. If I were in charge of the college I was at, I would have required co-teaching at least once a semester, that you're co-teaching a course.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's reasonable. That's right. That's correct. I bet you a lot more people would do it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I want to do it. Once you get going there, because there's more benefit than anything. Right?
I agree.
Yeah. Good job, Ronalda. You're nailing them. You're hitting them out of the park today, Ronalda. You're nailing it. All right. At one time, it should be a must.
I agree.
To her point earlier, her, that makes sense. It was hard to. You guys knock it off. I was 10 minutes late one time because of something that wasn't me, but I was 10 minutes. The first 5 or 6 comments were, I came back and forth half a dozen times. Glad to see you could make it. That's why I like to tell people, get here 7 minutes early. And you saw how scared I was back in the green room. How much more time I got to get on. Let's go. Because these guys are brutal. It was hard to find you today, but it was worth the search. Great speaker. Yeah, let's chat later, Ronaldo. That's awesome. So a couple things we picked up here. The more genuine you are with yourself and honest with yourself, and maybe adding that personality or not being against a different personality, you really get that ability, that chance, that opportunity to become that better person. And what's really cool about what you're doing and what you do, it's one thing to be a leader to people, but leading leaders to lead people, you're affecting the world. You're affecting, like when I sell a machine, I affect somebody. When you're leading leaders, teaching them, school and business, that's creating a better society. And that's awesome. That's got to be a great feeling you have every day waking up. And I agree, Ronaldo, great speaker.
Mm.
But your guest, oh, she's apologizing. Thank you, Ronaldo. She yelled, she got after me for
still
being
loves
late.
you.
Yeah, I still love you. You know that, girl.
Yeah.
Great content. So let's kind of put some filler in this, some color, I like to call it.
Yeah.
What is your oh, I got a meeting coming up. No, I'm good. What is your thing that you want people? There should have been a hell of a lot more, but I don't know what happened. They'll come and look at it later. Somebody told me they're on, you just can't see them. So I don't know what's happening. Yeah. But what do you want people to take away from here? And what's your contact information? Can you type it in there? You can only do it in the private chat. I always copy it and throw it over into the comments, because this is what happens. People come in tomorrow, next week, we get views, and then people ask a question. What did Paul mean by this? Well, I'm not the expert. This way I could send them straight to you.
Yeah.
So let's what do you want people to take away today? And then put your information up there, and I'll kick you back into the green room. You know what? I wonder if I can see you in the green room with that shirt on. I'll have to look. Or is it just your head? Sorry. I told you I'm a goofy guy sometimes. Sorry. I cannot resist. I know it's not maybe the most best thing I should do, but let's get back to the subject. What do you want us to take away? What do you want your fans here, all 4 of them, God dang it. What do you want them to take away from you today here?
I think the big idea for me is that we need more leaders. As I said earlier, if we always knew what to do and how to do it and had the courage and confidence, maybe we wouldn't need leaders. But the world is getting crazier by the day. It's more demanding. There's lots and lots of change happening. We need leaders to help us, sort through, clarify, get rid of the clutter, identify the top priorities, help us figure out the roadmap of how we're going to get there. So we need people, leaders that are going to add value. And I think when you go into meetings and you're in the classroom or dealing with your kids or whatever it might be, I think a key question to ask yourself is, how can I add value? How can I say or do something that will make a difference? Adding value can be done in a lot of different ways. It could be asking a question, making a comment, giving feedback, sometimes saying nothing, sometimes saying, you need to take a stab at figuring this out yourself and come back tomorrow and let's talk about it. Give them some opportunity to work on it. I will give a little plug. I've written a number of books and articles, but I have a number of books on Amazon. For example, if you want more information on the leadership styles, there's a book on that, and I wrote one on the leadership process. And as I mentioned, there's one on stress management. And I will say my books are short. They're like 80 pages long. I try to present one big idea, one major focus for them. And they're also very inexpensive. They're like $4.99, so you're not going to go broke buying one. So anyway, that if you wanted more information, like on the leadership styles and other stuff, there's a lot of books that give more insight, more background, more depth to those things. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I try to post something there once or twice a week on leadership. Leadership is a passion of mine, and I, study it a lot, talk about it a lot, try to go on podcasts like today and interact with people and, see what they're thinking and try to answer their questions in a way that will help them be more effective leaders and make a difference. And as I say, add value. So,
dude, that is awesome. That is fantastic. I'm going to put you back in the green room. Give your fans a big wave and hello. Be sure and put that information on the private chat. I'll copy and paste it over because a lot of people are getting ripped off. There was a ton of people that were here. We need to get more information that they deserve. So Paul, thank you. Great day today. I appreciate it. And you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Rod, for having me on. I enjoyed it as well.
Me too. Bye. All right. Dang it, man. Technology is a wonderful thing and not always perfect. So I'm not going to spend a bunch of time whining about this, but we'll figure it out and get it going back on there. I appreciate the people that kept trying to get back on. I'd see the numbers go up and fall off and go up and fall off. So Paul is going to be in the private chat here. He's putting down the contact information, and I am going to, as I do every show, especially with value. Not every subject is valuable, but this, like he said, leading and teaching leaders. The world needs leaders. And one thing he was talking about is that the world's getting crazier and crazier. And he was kind of leaning into what we talk about as well with AI coming. It's coming in waves and really fast and gaining momentum. Automation and AI. We got to have leaders for that. I mean, who's going to be? It's a technology-driven world. We need people more to develop that and make it perfect for the great middle class. So, there's a lot of things that we can talk about. We will every day. I got another show coming up here in a little bit. As soon as Paul gets that stuff on there, you'll find that contact information in the comment section here. And, because that was a gym day. That was a lot of insights and straight talk with me. I'm your host, Rod Duff. And of course, you all know producer Barbie. Ronaldo is starting to become a friend, not just a friend, but starting to be a real contributor to the show. And I appreciate that. And because with that, I'm out.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.